We're here outside the Capitol building, and you have picketed the lawn with help wanted signs. You know, you had said, Goldman Sachs had said just weeks ago that more than 30% of small businesses didn't even know that they could survive through this pandemic. What's at stake here?
Well, small businesses are, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, out in the cold with you outside the Capitol on this gray morning. But small businesses are such a vitally important part of our economy. And they're so important in terms of how they employ, take care of families, contribute to the communities that we all live and operate in. And they've been so badly hit, so badly affected by the pandemic, and they need help. And some help has come, but more help is needed. And so one of the things we're trying to do by picketing here on the Hill is to let Congress know there are a number of things that small businesses still need help and support on to get to the other side. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but they need some help to get through the tunnel and get to the other side.
Now, a lot of this is about stimulus, and Joe Biden himself has called the current package a down payment. So what is the David Solomon plan? What would you say is needed in terms of the amount needed to save this economy?
So one of the things that we've done over the course of the last few months, given that we have over 10,000 businesses, small businesses that have been through our program over the course of the last decade, is we've gone out, we've surveyed them, and we've talked to them. And we've created something called 10,000 Small Businesses Voices, which is really an advocacy platform. And we've asked them, what do you need help with? And if you look at these placards that are here on the lawn, they raise a number of issues that the small businesses are saying, hey, we need help with this. And I'd highlight three of them to you that I think are very, very important. The first is they need access to capital. They need capital to bridge them through this challenging period of time. And something like the Restart Act, I think, is a good way to get at that. Second, they talk about the need to support the people who work for them, particularly around health care. And health care costs are just so prohibitive, often they're not in a position to take care of the health care issues that their employees have. And so they need some way to create better incentives to provide health care support for their employees. And third, because people are working harder, given the challenges they face, they need more help with childcare and just basic support so they can be present at work, but also make sure that their children are taken care of, while they're working and trying to keep their businesses afloat.
So all of this is happening as unemployment still remains very elevated. And it's even worse for Black Americans, even worse for Hispanic Americans and Asian Americans. What do you think on day one is going to be Joe Biden's toughest task in fixing that gap?
Well, the toughest task that the new administration has is continuing to march forward to make progress on getting the vaccines distributed so we can get to the other side of the virus. There's going to be a lot of discussion about what additional stimulus is needed. We've raised a bunch of issues here this morning where we're trying to get people focused on things that we think needs to be included in any additional stimulus that's brought forward. But I think the big focus right now is we've got to get people vaccinated. We've got to get to the other side of the virus.
Well, a lot of the market had been reacting to this vaccine hope, but the rollout has been so slow so far, and it's drawn a lot of concerns. How is that impacting your own plans, and how is that impacting the plans of your clients?
Well, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty, and there's no question that the supply of vaccine is growing. In fact, I'm very encouraged by the amount of vaccine that's out there, but we have to find more flexible, nimble, more efficient ways to get that vaccine distributed. And I'm hopeful that in addition to the state actions that are being taken around the country, potentially will allow the private sector to help with plans to get this vaccine distributed. There's plenty of vaccine. We have to create increased speed and efficiency in getting that vaccine to people who are in need, especially vulnerable people and frontline workers who need the support right now.
Do you think it's moving fast enough that you'll be able to bring Goldman Sachs employees back in full by the end of the year?
I certainly would expect that we'll have Goldman Sachs employees back in full by the end of the year. We will get through this, and I'm really hopeful that over the course of the next 6 months, we see a real improvement, but there's still work to be done. And once we deal with the vaccine and the virus and people feel safe, we're still going to have to deal with the economic consequence of the shutdowns and the impact on our economy that this pandemic's had. And that, I think, will be a bumpier, longer period of time.
Before we get to the next 6 months, we have to get past the next 3 weeks. And tonight, with Georgia going on, I know everyone would love your opinion here on if the Democrats were to win the seats, what kind of impact would that have on the markets?
Well, I'm watching the election as everybody is, and we'll see over whether it's tonight or it's over the next couple of days what the result is. Depending on the result, it obviously can have an impact on policy. Policy affects markets. I think the markets think that this election at the moment is still very uncertain, very close, too close to call. And so like you, we'll watch and we'll see the outcome, and then we'll listen to the policy responses. The policy responses will have an impact on markets at that point in time.
Is a lot of the concern simply around taxes and the taxation of corporations on wealthy individuals, or what is really the concern?
I think people like to know the answer. The answer is uncertain at the moment. I'm sure once we know the answer, we'll move forward. Markets will be fine. That doesn't mean they'll go up the way they've gone up the last few months, but markets will be fine. We'll move forward. I think the big focus has to be on getting the economy back in shape, getting people employed, helping small businesses, really dealing with the consequence and impact of the pandemic, not so much the short-term gyrations of the market.
And on top of the Georgia elections, we do have this issue of certifying the Biden win. And you were one of almost 200 executives that had signed a letter urging Congress to do so. What's at risk here amid all these uncertainties?
Well, I think at this point in time, it's important for us to get focused on the tasks that are at hand. We have to get through the pandemic. We have to help those in need in the economy. We've got to get the economy running again. And so I congratulated the president-elect back in November when it was clear to me that he was the president-elect and we were going to go move forward. What's going on here the next couple of days, I think, is a distraction. I know what will happen on the 20th of January, and we will move forward. And that's what's important at this point in time.
So you have the 20th of January then, and the first days of Biden's presidency. What do you expect from him? What do you want to see beyond the vaccine?
I'd like to see some leadership around helping us all move forward around the pandemic, helping us move forward in terms of economically supporting those that need help because of the pandemic, particularly small businesses. I'd like to see a consistent message as to what we all need to do to come together to solve these problems. This is a time for us to come together as a country to get past the pandemic and move forward and help people that have been really adversely affected by this horrible 12 months that we've had.
You know, I think there's been a lot of concerns for many months about why the stock market has been rallying so much while we have so many of these underlying concerns. Do you have any concerns about the fragility of the market at these current levels, given that we still have so much wrong?
Well, I think that there's no question that the monetary policy and fiscal policy actions have definitely been very, very supportive of asset prices. And so obviously equity markets benefit from that. I said a few weeks ago, and I stand by it now, it's hard to justify some of the valuations I see in the market, particularly around very, very growthy companies, around some of the IPOs that have come. We've seen other periods of ebullience in markets before. They rebalance over time, and my expectation is some of the excess we've seen maybe over the course of the last few months will rebalance in the coming months. But I'm much more focused on the medium or long term. I don't get too upset about short-term market gyrations.
I do want to get your opinion here on something else that's going on in the market that a lot of other people are concerned about. You know, we saw this big move by the New York Stock Exchange also to potentially delist some Chinese companies and then reverse that course. You know, you're somebody who has a lot of business abroad, a huge growth area in China. I'm wondering what all these uncertainties mean for you in terms of China reopening its financial system.
Well, the first phase of the trade agreement called for broader access for financial firms to markets in China, and that's being executed, at the moment. We'll see if it carries through and executes all the way. But the relationship between the U.S. and China right now, the bilateral relationship, is incredibly complex. And I think it's one of the big challenges that the Biden administration has going forward. The foreign policy strategy that we've really executed on with China over the last 40 years, and that allowing them to participate with all the other economies around the world, including the U.S., and thinking they'll move in our direction in terms of how they operate, that does not seem to have worked. And we need to ensure as we go forward that the playing field is level and fair and appropriate. And I think there are going to be big challenges to that as we move forward. But that's something that the administration will have to take on. But there's a lot of uncertainty around that. And I think that's something that we're going to be talking about and living with and thinking about for a number of years as we move forward in the future.
Right. That was going to be my other question. How much of an overhang do you think that uncertainty will be? I mean, Biden has all these other issues, as we discussed, to take care of first. How quickly do you think the trade relationship with China will get figured out?
I think this is a complicated issue that's going to take time to sort out. But it certainly, I know, will be a big focus of the Biden administration, as it was with the Trump administration. I think it'll be important for us to continue to focus on improving that relationship and making progress to level the playing field and assure that partnership. We have to work with China as a trade partner. We have to work with China sometimes as a competitor. We have to work with China sometimes as an adversary. But we have to balance all that and do what's right for the U.S. to move forward.
So I want to turn to your business for a second, because in the most recent quarter, you had a standout quarter, right? It was returns of equity of more than 17%. People look into 2021, and I think everyone wants to know, what is the biggest growth driver for you this year?
Well, we have a number of businesses, I think, as you know, and you and I have talked before. We obviously have our big corporate investment bank with our business that serves governments, institutions, corporate clients broadly. That's investment banking, sales, and trading. And there are clients, given the uncertainty in the world, have been very, very active, and we expect that activity to continue. We also have a large asset management business. We're a very, very significant asset manager globally around the world in almost all products broadly, and we think there's a lot of opportunity for us to continue to help our clients in the asset management business, and that's an area of growth for us and something that we've been focused on. In addition, we have a consumer wealth business that we're expanding, a digital consumer business that we're trying to grow so that we can serve a broader array of clients with respect to all their financial needs digitally, and we're very focused on the growth of that business. So those are our three big platforms broadly, and we see growth opportunities in all three of them as we move forward, and we're going to work hard to help our clients manage their financial needs, because that's a big part of what we do on a day-to-day basis.
And, even after a pandemic, you still have all this excess capital. What are you going to do with all of that?
Well, we're making investments in our business, as we just discussed, and that obviously requires capital. We have not been able to return capital to shareholders during the course of this year because we took that action with a number of the other large banks back in the spring because we didn't think it's appropriate. We probably are in a position to start that at some point in 2021, and so we will consider, both investments and return of capital as appropriate as we move forward.